What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lacrosse Now alongside Boston Marathon finisher Travis Eldridge. I am Tom Eschen. That's right. He ran a marathon yesterday.
And I'm back at work. That's how much I care about this podcast and show.
Yep, he does. Congratulations, Travis.
Thank
and
you,
more
Tom.
So, I mean, you and your wife, Caroline, raised almost $25,000 for Teddy's team, stroke awareness. I mean, two great accomplishments all in the one. It sounded like a really rewarding experience.
Yeah, it was incredible. And crossing the finish line with her after everything we've been through the last couple of years was
powerful.
Was really special.
All right.
Awesome.
Great to start the podcast. So and the show. So we've got a lot for you. We had a busy weekend once again of lacrosse. We had some pretty good men's games. The Ivy League is crazy again. So we're gonna talk. We talked a lot about the conference last week and who might fit into the conference tournament. How about who's going to make a run in the NCAAs? We'll talk about that today. But also on the women's side of things, we're also going to bring up Duke and Boston College, biggest upset maybe of the season in lacrosse. We'll talk about that. And also the men, Tewaaraton is our other topic today. We're going to ask maybe who are our couple guys that we think could go out and be a finalist and maybe win it.
And a couple of great guests.
Yes.
You got Maddie Jenner, obviously talking about Duke's big upset win, and Ryan Aughavin from Brown. They had a big win themselves, taking down Yale.
Yeah.
So all that's coming up. But we've got to start with the prediction heard around the lacrosse world. Tom goes out there on Thursday, and I thought you were crazy. I think most of the lacrosse world did too.
Oh, wow.
Goes out there and pumps up that the Duke women are going to knock off Boston College. And sure enough, where do we start? We start with the Duke women knocking off Boston College. I don't know if there's anybody else that called this, but congratulations. What a performance by the Blue Devils, and a well-deserved huge win for them to kind of put their stake in the, hey, we're here in the ACC conversation. Don't forget about us.
This is all about Duke. I know, obviously, I made the prediction, whatever you want to call it, but this is about the Duke women's team who have assembled this roster of depth. And you look at the way they won that game, and we talked about on Thursday, I mentioned, well, they have felt this before against a good team in Syracuse. They got up big early. Syracuse came back and ended up beating them. That was their one loss this year. This time around, BC comes back. Duke even more shorthanded in this game as Sophia LaRose comes out with an injury, and Kennedy Everson, a freshman, comes into the game with 12:52 to go. She made one save, but that one save was a Charlotte North free position shot with
Huge.
5:52 to play. And the defense around her stepped up as well in that final stretch. 3 caused turnovers in that final 12 minutes. They only allowed 3 goals in that final 12 minutes, too. That, to me, was the biggest point of the game for Duke and how they were able to rally around this freshman goalie. When she goes in there, I'm like, well, I'm not sure. LaRose is playing so well, and you got a freshman in there against North and Boston College and Medjid who were going off. It was just, it's all about what Duke has done. And to do that, a couple of years removed from the Charlotte North era against the Boston College team, coming off a championship, I think it was an incredible performance and a tribute to exactly what Coach Kimmel has done with that program. And congratulations. I mean, and Duke deserves all the accolades. They've got another tough one, we know, against North Carolina coming up here soon. But this is something that they should relish in at the moment. It's such a big win for their program. And they deserve this win. It wasn't a fluke. They beat Boston College.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, they on that given day were the better team against BC. BC did what you expected them to do. Like, I think that's maybe the most impressive part about this win for Duke is that the Blue Devils, and this has, I think, been the recipe for success against a Carolina or a BC this year. It's you get up, you know that they're going to make a run, you find a way to withstand that run and stay on top. Well, BC not only made the run, they tied this game in the fourth quarter, and the calm and coolness of this Duke team to take Boston College's best shot that they knew was coming, and I think maybe this is the learning experience you learned from the Syracuse game. Yeah. Take that best shot, not panic, not say, all right, well, Boston College is going to beat us. Say, no, it's okay. We got this. And then they scored the goal late, the go-ahead goal by Maddie Jenner to make it 16-15. They hold on in the final minute 20 to get the big win. And it's something that we're going to hear the interview in a little bit here with Maddie Jenner, but it's something we spoke about. And talking about, learning from that Syracuse loss where they had I think it was a 7-goal lead at one point.
Yeah, they were up
and
early,
they let it slip away, ends up being a 1-goal loss. And I think that's the key throughout the year is you take situations like that against good teams, you learn from them, and hopefully by the end of the season, you're playing your best lacrosse. You mentioned what they did against Charlotte North. I mean, to hold Charlotte North scoreless in the first half is a really, really impressive accomplishment. She was held quiet. And despite the fact that Belle Smith and Jen Medjid went off for Boston College.
Yeah, Belle Smith played a great game.
Yeah, maybe this is the recipe. Because, I mean, you let the two of them go off and you hold Charlotte North. Apparently it works because we saw what Charlotte North did against North Carolina. She still got hers. This has really been like maybe the one time this year that North has kind of been held in check.
And you do that too. I mean, Boston College has a good defense too.
Yeah.
And I think that Duke attacked them from a lot of different angles. It wasn't just one person. You had 8 different goal scorers in that game for Duke. And they did such a good job with that. And they won the draw more often than not. Yeah, Duke did turn the ball over 16 times. The Boston College is 9. But you win the draw 20-14. And that's exactly what Maddie Jenner did against North. Maybe frustrating her a little bit. BC wasn't able to really get themselves settled initially after taking the draw. Of course, they got it after some turnovers by Duke, but I think that was just the feel where Duke was able to control enough of the game where BC couldn't go on that 8-9, whatever goal run they could have possibly gone on that Syracuse did against them. And they attacked, I think, BC in a lot of different ways and made it really difficult and never let BC get that comfortable. And I think that's what North Carolina did to a point, and Duke can do this to any team, I think, in the country, because they also have a lot of different weapons that come at you and are very talented at that. And I think that Duke, you look at the poll this week, and I don't have a vote in this poll, but for them to just be 5th in the country is really tough for me, because we've been talking about Boston College and North Carolina all season as in this other tier. And I think everybody else has said the same, yet Duke is sitting there at 5 right now. And that is tough. And I know that some of the teams ahead of them have some good wins, maybe a win or two that are better than Duke so far. Duke just beat Boston College. They should be the second best team in the country. I'm sorry. I mean, if they're that far and away better than everybody else, Duke and North Carolina, which we thought all season long, Duke should be number 2. I don't really care what anyone else has done. That win is better and maybe can count for 2 wins for all I care. Duke should be number 2.
See that. And I will say that you put this argument, and when you go to vote in this poll, it comes down to, all right, like, what are you going to vote on? Because by this time of the year, just about everybody has a loss. Most of those teams in the top 5 have good wins. So are you going to vote strictly on good wins? Are you going to vote on who has bad losses? Everybody has their own criteria. The one thing the reason this win was so big for Duke falls into why they're still number 5 in the country, which is their non-conference schedule wasn't what Syracuse and Northwestern and
Duke's
Maryland
RPI is like 12.
It's different.
Which is fine.
However, this win shows not only the rest of the country, but I also think it shows the team that, okay, we are one of those top 5 teams that is a national title Final Four contender because we beat a team that everybody thought was there. So I think in terms of, like, look, they're in the top 5. At the end of the day, it's not going to be the rankings that matter at the end of the year. But I think more than anything, it proved to them internally, like, hey, we are in this conversation. Because whether you believe it or not, until you do it, it's hard to really buy in. We're Final Four good.
Yeah, I understand that, the buy-in aspect, but them not being in the top 5. And
they are in the top 5.
I mean, them in the top 5, them not being in the top 4 hurts them, because in order to make it to that championship weekend, I know their RPI, they're going to get ranked by the committee what they're going to get ranked, but still eye test, and you look at where they're ranked in these polls, it's going to be tough for them to find their way into the top 4 unless they go into that ACC tournament and get a couple wins. Maybe they should.
Well, I mean, they beat Carolina on Thursday.
They have to do this again in some aspect.
Yes.
They have to beat BC again or North Carolina now again to get in that top 4. And yeah, I mean, that's another great win for them, but I feel like because of this, just to me is such a big win, it should count for a couple. That's all I should say. They should get them into the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but the tough thing is, like, you look at what's their best win outside of BC, and it's either Virginia, Notre Dame, or Penn. And Penn's the best win they have out of the conference. And Penn in the Ivy League is not what we've seen Penn be in past years. So that is the thing that holds them back in terms of like the pure resume. But you're right. They're going to have other chances. They've got Carolina on Thursday, a gigantic game. And then the chances are they're either going to play Carolina, BC, or Syracuse, at least one of them, again in the ACC tournament, if not more of them. So there are plenty of opportunities. I mean, Duke has everything in front of them. Like you put the stake in here as, hey, we're a team to be reckoned with. And and we had talked about this before. You really just need to be in the top 6, right? Like you'd have to go on the road if you're the 5 or 6 seed in the quarterfinals if everything plays out. You just don't want to play Carolina or BC. And despite this loss, and where Boston College dropped in the national rankings, I have a feeling that it's probably still going to be Carolina and BC, the top 2, on how things shake out at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think this was more about Duke than BC than anything else.
For sure.
This was Duke's day. And I think BC is still every bit as good. I just think that Duke has entered the chat, as they say. They're like, okay, this team can be beat. It depends on the day, but there's a team, and we're a team that can do that depending on what happens down the stretch. I mean, even North Carolina, had a couple of close games in the NCAA tournament last year down the stretch, too. So if things can go any other way, Duke's saying, yes, we're a team that can get the job done when it counts the most.
For sure. And also, I mean, you look at the rankings, talk about big games. You got Maryland Northwestern in the Big Ten coming up. And that, I think, will tell us a lot about both of those teams that are both there also, I think, in the conversation. Like, who's the real contender, or do we have 2 real contenders out of the Big Ten?
Okay. I know this is taking a while, but we're going to get to Maddie Jenner in a second. Say Duke beat North Carolina. I'm not saying that's going to happen. This is not a prediction.
They have to be number 1 in the country.
Are they number 1 in the country?
They 100% are.
You think so?
Because it's one thing to do it once.
Yeah, you do it again. You think that's enough? That's finally enough for everybody?
No. Because I would vote them number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
And here's my reasoning is that you beat BC once by 1 goal at home. It's senior day. The emotions play into it. Whatever. You go back-to-back, 2 wins over the top 2 teams in the country in the same week. No longer, and because with 1 win, you still can look at the resume. But when you have 2 wins over the top 2 teams, there's not one other team in the country that can say that.
I bet you there's going to be some people that don't vote them number 1.
Who else would you vote number 1, though?
There could be some North Carolina votes because they've gotten the wins against BC, Syracuse.
But they would have the same record. They would both only have 1 loss. And they're head-to-head. You're right.
I know the lacrosse world.
Right.
And I know people will be like, well, North Carolina's still the best team.
There's just no way. But if that happens on Thursday, Duke is the number 1 team in the country.
All right, we'll see what happens. But that's going to be a fun game to watch regardless. I think it should be a lot, both those offenses going at it. And, hopefully LaRose is healthy for that game as well to help try to stop that North Carolina offense, they have looked at the best once again over the regular season, just like they have last year.
We talk about the scoring depth with Carolina throughout the year. I mean, for Duke to win 16-15 and not have one player that had more than 3 points.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It made it so fun to watch because you never knew who was going to get the ball next. And
how do you defend that?
And that was what was the key, I think, to that last play. Because I don't think Boston College particularly knew what was coming. You see in a lot, you look at Boston College, you know they're going to Charlotte North.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're not going to be able to stop that. Where that last play, you didn't exactly know what Duke was going to draw up and for who. And I think that's what has made them very dangerous, especially in a tournament scenario where you play a lot of close games.
Well, and then you still have a player in Cat Berry who can go off for the big points. But the depth in that game was really impressive. But we had a chance to talk to the player who scored the game winner, Maddie Jenner, about this incredible win. Here it is. So coming off that gigantic win, we've got Maddie Jenner from Duke. Maddie, just explain to me the feeling after the win on Saturday. Take me back.
It was just like a culmination of so much hard work. So it was just joyous, I'd say, was the feeling after we won.
Break down how it went down, because it felt like, and this is what it's felt like against a team like a Boston College or North Carolina this year. You got to kind of jump out into the lead early and then hold them off because they're going to go on a run. So walk me through how the game played out and how you guys were able to come out on top.
Okay, so we were able to kind of hold a good lead and kind of manage their runs through the first half. And then think we had a couple goals in the beginning of the third quarter, and for a minute I was like, okay, maybe we could kind of run away with this, but they're starting to roll. And I think we will definitely need to work on like managing our leads better, but they made it a really close game, had a couple amazing shots. And you kind of just knew it was going to be a close one throughout the fourth quarter. So I was able to get the draw, and then we called a timeout. And that was when they called the play for Chubbs to look inside for me and Abby Landry. And I worked a lot with Caroline DeVillis, like after practice, and like she's a wonderful feeder, and she knows where I want the ball. She lofts it up with such a nice soft touch, so they're really easy. The passes are really easy to handle. So I was like, just hit me high and soft, Chubbs, and she did exactly what I said. And I knew she really wanted to hit me. And then we still had 90 seconds or so after that, and unfortunately, Boston College, I thought I had that draw, and one of their circle girls was super quick off the circle, but luckily we were able to hold strong defensively. So that was the last minute was super nerve-wracking for sure.
Yeah, it always is. It's never going to be easy, especially against a team like BC. They pull even there, and there's a couple of minutes left, and you guys draw up that play that ends up being the game winner. Like, what was it for you guys confidence-wise that even though they're back even in the game, a game that you guys have led for a good portion of it, that you had the confidence, hey, don't worry, relax, we've got this, we're going to figure out a way to win?
I think a lot of practice and preparation gives you the confidence. And like Chubbs and I, we weren't nervous. I'm not exactly sure why, but maybe something about evening it up. It was like 0-0. All right, we're back to square one. Let's go. So wasn't too nerve-wracking. I also didn't really think of it as like the game winner because there was like about a minute left. So I wasn't really kind of getting outside the moment. I was just really focusing on the play.
How about the job your defense did, especially on Charlotte North? Like, how do you describe the job that they did, keeping her to what her total was, and then of course down the stretch in that last 90 seconds, keeping them off the board?
Yeah, Kazi, Katie Cosgrove, we call her Kazi. She was matched up on Charlotte, and she was focusing the whole game. And then Maddie Johnson had 2 back-to-back checks on her matchup. So that was so impressive. I love watching the replay of her checks. It's so satisfying. So that was huge. And then Cubby Viscardi getting that key ground ball at the end. So they were just really locked in.
What did you feel like you guys as a team proved with that win on Saturday?
I think that we're capable of competing at the top, and we haven't had the ability to play like a ton of top teams. So it was key that we could get this win.
Well, what did you? I mean, because you guys have competed with some of the best. Like the one goal, you had the 1-goal loss to Syracuse. I wondered, like, what do you learn from that game where you turned that 1-goal loss on the road into a 1-goal win here at home?
I think we kind of learned to manage like the ebbs and flows of the game a bit better. Kind of manage the like momentum shifts throughout the game. So when Boston College had all the mojo in like mid fourth quarter, that didn't kind of deter us, and we didn't get too frazzled. But I think it kind of felt like back in the Syracuse game after we blew the 7-goal lead, like it felt like they were winning even when they were only down like one or two. So I think our composure was a lot better in this game.
And you get this win on senior day. Like, put a cherry on top of a gigantic ice cream sundae for that, right?
Yeah. It just made so many families happy, so many siblings, parents, aunts, and uncles. So I'm glad we could make so many people so happy.
I want to talk about your game because it's not even just this year, throughout your pretty much entire career, have been one of the best people at the draw circle throughout the entire country. And in the women's game, like, there's an art to it, and then there's also just, like, I feel like some want and desire that goes into it as well in terms of who's going to win that draw. Like, what's your secret?
I think a lot of preparation, really honing my technique, mid-game adjustments is important. I watched like 6 hours of film on Charlotte taking the draw. So just a lot of preparation, and like wrist strength, wrist quickness. My height helps, obviously. So I think a lot of factors. It's not one thing.
Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things. So you followed your sister Olivia here to Duke, and I wonder, was there ever a question if you didn't want to follow in her footsteps, or was it always like, hey, I'm gonna go where she's gone?
No, that definitely was a question, and when I started getting recruited back before the recruiting rules came into play, and like my freshman and sophomore year, I definitely wasn't as confident in myself as a player. So I felt like if I went to Duke, I would just kind of be in her shadow. And then as I started to come into my own throughout high school, I felt like I could come to Duke and be my own player. And we definitely have different styles. So once I think I got that confidence, I could come here and still contribute in my own way, like without having her shadow on me, then I committed.
Well, what's been the difference of when you were on the team with her there and now once she's gone? Do you miss her?
Yeah, I do. I've definitely grown a lot as a player. We shared the draw responsibility my freshman year, and I'm more of an offensive contributor now. So I think I also just kind of took a backseat, to her, understandably.
Yeah, it makes sense. It like backyard draw control, like one-on-one. Who has the edge?
So that's a hard question, because in high school, maybe it was pretty even, actually. But it was hard because I was always younger. And now when I do it, she's not in her prime anymore. She's a bit rusty. And she'll only allow me like 10 draws against her before she's done. So we've never really met each other at each other's primes. So it's tough to answer that one. I think I have the edge. So.
Yeah, hey, you should think that. We need like some kind of video game or something. You get prime Olivia versus prime Maddie, and we can figure this out once and for all. Before we let you go, we have to talk about what you guys have coming up this week, because you knock off number 2 Boston College on Saturday, and now you have number 1 North Carolina on Thursday. How do you manage all the excitement that you had this weekend, but then also turn the page to knowing you have your biggest rival and now the biggest game of your season to date coming up in just a couple of days? Yeah,
I think after the weekend, yesterday, we kind of flipped the page to our game Thursday, because UNC, they just have a wealth of talent at every position. They're an amazing team. So we definitely had to refocus, and we had some things we need to improve, like turnovers. So we definitely didn't play a perfect game on Saturday. So we're really focused in on areas of improvement. But Thursday will be a great opportunity for us. Will be a great challenge.
You mentioned the game last year, and you've been through a couple of these games. Duke, Carolina, I mean, people know the rivalry in every sport. What's it like to be a part of that rivalry?
It's an honor, because it's one of the best rivalries in college sports. So it's so cool to just be a part of it. I know UNC got the edge in basketball this year, so maybe we can redeem that.
Little redemption on the line here on Thursday. Hey, Maddie, we can't wait to watch that game. It's going to be a ton of fun. Good luck on Thursday, and thank you so much for taking some time.
Thank you.
Maddie Jenner, obviously a huge game. Thanks to her for taking some time sandwiched between 2 gigantic games. They've turned the page now to North Carolina. One more note on her: 20 draw controls for Duke. She had 12 of them. She talked about how much film time she took in terms of getting ready for Charlotte North. I'm guessing a lot of film study as she gets ready for Carolina.
What a legacy those Jenners have at
Right?
Duke. Olivia and Maddie back to back. That's pretty cool for a family to be able to say that and to have the success they did and really help build that program, be a big part of the foundational pieces of that as it's continued to grow these last few years.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, you know what? We're about to talk Tewaaraton on the men's side, but she keeps this up.
Yep.
Different type of Tewaaraton conversation, but her dominance at the draw circle. If Duke is really good, I don't know.
Changes games,
Complete game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get to the men's side of things. And we've had an interesting weekend. We'll get to the Ivy League stuff in a moment. We get in terms of the big Brown upset. But we wanted to look at the Tewaaraton, right now today, because I feel like we've got a couple of guys, and Logan Wisnauskas, Chris Gray, who are going to be there. The question is who else? Because I think after that, it gets pretty wide open. I don't know who's going to win it, maybe between these guys, number one. I think if Gray gets that points record, which he probably will, I think, if North Carolina continues to play a few more games and maybe they win an NCAA game, he's going to get pretty close to that. That could be a lifetime achievement award for him. Wisnauskas, best team, most important player that's involved too. But who else could make a run at it depending on what those guys do down the stretch?
So I want to start with Wisnauskas and Gray because both of them are top 5 in the nation in points right now. And Chris Gray, though, has kind of fallen back in these last several games. I mean, North Carolina is so reliant on him. And when teams have figured out that they're not going to score a whole lot of goals if Chris Gray's not a part of it, they've isolated on him. So he's now 5.9 points per game, 4th in the country. Logan Wisnauskas is not far behind. He's at 5.6 and very well may catch him, and he's 5th as Chris Gray is 4th. So you look at those guys, and Chris Gray, with all he's accomplished throughout his career, I think is a slam dunk to be there. But with what Carolina has done this year and all the question marks on even if they make the NCAA tournament, I just don't know if he's the most important player for North Carolina and they don't make the tournament. He's going to be a finalist.
It's not his fault.
But there's no way he can win it, right? With what we've seen in the Tewaaraton's history, even Lyle Thompson, for Lyle Thompson and what he accomplished in a single season, he wins the award. And there were questions about it when he just got to the quarterfinals. If you don't even make the tournament, there's no way, right?
No, yeah, I don't think so. And I think, we know that Gray has made such an impact in North Carolina since he's been there. And last year, to me, probably would have been the year. Right. Yeah. He went to the Final Four. He had the stats. The team just didn't make it far enough, and he was overtaken by a Jared Bernhardt, who was another otherworldly type generational talent as an athlete out there and guiding his team to the championship game. So last year felt like the year for Gray. Just didn't have enough around him this year to be able to do it. And yes, he's taken a lot on his back, and defenses know he's the guy. Yet he's continuing to still score.
Right. It's impressive.
It just, like you said, history. You have to look back and say how things have looked, and for him, unfortunately, it doesn't line up that way. Unless he finishes out and he breaks the points record and smashes it, there's really not much else he can do to strengthen his resume at this point because this team isn't going to be able to get there for him.
Yeah, unless they go on a run here, win a couple of games, and somehow find their way in.
Yeah.
Like that. Their RPI numbers are still good.
Their RPI is great. They're 8-4. They're still. There's now 3 ACC teams ahead of them in our IL poll too. Don't forget. So you've got Virginia, Notre Dame, and Duke all ahead of North Carolina in the ACC, where many people think ACC at most is a 3-bid league. So North Carolina, if you're looking at the poll, I know RPI is a different feel, but you're looking at North Carolina, the 4th team looking in, they're going to need a big win down the stretch here, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, and that Syracuse win by 1 goal this weekend didn't do you any favor.
No.
I talked about how important that game was. They had to win it, but it also felt like they probably needed some style points in the process because of what Syracuse has done recently. But I digress. So Chris Gray's there. I don't know if he wins it. Logan Wisnauskas, what he's done, I feel like it's kind of under the radar considering just how dominant Maryland has been as a team. Logan Wisnauskas isn't getting the Jared Bernhardt treatment with what Maryland has done because they have so much depth around him. But he is, at this point, the guy for Maryland on the best team in the country. And when you look at the Tewaaraton Award, it's who's the guy on the team that is the best in the country, and right now it's him.
And like probably people will say, well, you take him out, is Maryland still like this? And
they're still good.
They're still
really good.
They're still pretty good. They might have a loss, maybe to Notre Dame. Maybe they lose the game to Notre Dame or Princeton. I don't know, but it's not a most valuable award.
No.
You know what I mean? Like you said, it's about the guy on the best team for the most part over the course of its history, and that's who he's been. And he's been remarkably consistent in that. It feels like he doesn't have a bad game. And some of these guys that we're going to talk about have had games. There's reasons for them not to win it. I don't think Logan Wisnowski has given us yet a reason for him not to win it.
So who's your guy? So those are the top two. We're consensus that they're going to be finalists. Who's your guy right now that you think would be a finalist if the season ended today?
I mean, you look at Georgetown. I think I'm starting there, and I'm a defensive guy. You know me. So I'm going with their goalie. I know he's missed 3 games, Owen McElroy. He came back against Marquette this past weekend, played pretty well there. He missed the game against Lehigh, Denver, and Providence. And yet Georgetown kept that up. They've got a great defense around him.
Yeah.
But you have to put somebody from Georgetown's defense there because that is what their staple is. Yeah, they can score some on offense. Graham Bundy and company have been really good. But McElroy, I mean, he's the best goalie on the best defense in the country. Number 2 in goals against average. His save percentage is number 2 as well. Georgetown's RPI is 3rd in the country. And you look at what they did against Princeton. Princeton has the 3rd best offense in the nation at 15.64 goals per game. Princeton scored 10 goals still against Georgetown there. So
Princeton did win that game.
I know they did win that game, but still, that wasn't his fault. He held them to 10 goals, and we've seen Princeton go off for 20, 21 goals in a game. So I really think that what he has done, and we talk about the guy on the team, and Georgetown is a team I see being there at the end, at the very least, championship weekend, just the way they are so balanced offensively and defensively, and he brings that. The best defense, best goalie, in my opinion, and he should be there at the end of the day, where he should be a finalist and could very well win it if Georgetown goes on and wins the whole thing.
Haven't had a goalie on the men's side win the Tewaaraton Award.
Megan Taylor plays the trail, and the way that the Georgetown defense, the way they rock and roll, it's pretty good. I think Will Bowen, with the numbers he's put up this year, in terms of caused turnovers, ground balls, he's got 11 caused turnovers, 35 ground balls. Like, he's been an important part of their defense. I just think that you look at what McElroy has done. When he's expected to play big, he always seems to do so. He's
been impressive, really impressive.
Yeah, I think some of those games might be held against him not playing, and then Georgetown's still playing well. But I mean, Lehigh scored, I think, 11 goals. Denver was single digits, but Denver has never really had that convincing of an offense this year either. And Providence was a dominating win. Like, those 3 games, whether he was in there or not, Georgetown was going to win. I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It didn't really matter. So I do think that he will be there, and he could be a guy that wins it too. If Georgetown goes and holds Maryland to 9 goals on Championship Monday, he's got to win it.
If he stands on his head, then he's certainly in the conversation, and he has to be, I think, now. I'm going to go back to the offensive side, and a lot of this, for my selection, I think goes to what happened this weekend, and that's Army beating Cornell, and I think Brendan Nichtern now with Army is that win. And Cornell's been a little up and down here in the last couple of weeks with what they've done in the Ivy League, but there's no question, for the most part, Cornell's been a top 10 team all year. Army, I felt like, needed that out of conference to show everybody, okay, we're not just like one of those teams that's hanging around at 12 or 13, that is whatever. Like, we can be in the top, legitimately in that top 10 conversation. I thought this win, not only winning against Cornell, but the margin in which they beat Cornell kind of convinced me. And with Brandon Nichtern, the points aren't the question. I mean, he's 2nd in the country, and it's in points per game. And the only guy that's ahead of him, and just slightly, is Asher Nolting. And High Point doesn't have nearly the resume Army does. So you look at what Army has, where they've positioned themselves. They've got the one loss to Lehigh in Patriot League play by 1. And I think right now they have to be feeling like they're playing some of their best lacrosse. They go ahead and win the Patriot League tournament, and they're in the NCAAs. Brendan Nichtern, I think, has to be in consideration for being a finalist, because it's not just some random guy leading the country in points per game. It's a guy who very well could be on a team that's seated in the top 8 And if that's the case, he's leading the country in points per game, and they're seeded going into the tournament. I mean, he's got to get a nod.
Yeah, and he goes up against what a lot of people think maybe was one of the best defenders in the country, defenseman in the country, and Gavin Adler last weekend. And he scores 2 goals and 2 assists, which is, I mean, you factor in 4 points in the scoring in a game where you score a lot of goals. And it's not like he was shut down and the Army spread things out a little bit more, knowing what they were going up against. But he still did a lot for that team, and a big win over a defense I think had a lot of respect in this country.
Yeah.
After what
and they hung 17 goals on him.
Yeah. So I think I agree, and what he's done in his career as well, factors into that. And he's second in the nation too in assists per game, and I think that's important too. And these are the kind of guys that at the end of the line are the ones that are the Tewaaraton finalists, and they're the ones that not only score the goals but help their team and keep the ball in play on their side of the field. And he's done a great job of that. And really over the course of his career, he came in as a freshman. You remember that year, like, this kid from Army's really good. He has been consistent ever since. And he, like you said, I think that I like the argument of just, this is not just some other team in a smaller conference that's going off or what have you. And he has done a really great job in a tough league, in a league that doesn't score. It feels like on a yearly basis doesn't score a lot of goals.
Grind it out,
situation. Type of thing. And he's done that consistently for a while and continues to do so. So, I think that's a fine choice. And I don't know if he's getting enough recognition for that either.
No, and I think, like, no offense to Asher Nolting, but if High Point's having the year that Jacksonville's having,
that's a different story.
I think then you put Asher Nolting. If High Point finishes strong and makes it to either makes it and wins the SoCon tournament, or he continues to lead the country in points and they get to the final and lose, then I think he's certainly in the mix for being a finalist as well. But I think with what Nick Turn has done, combined with what Army has done so far this year, I think that's the recipe.
Yeah, I mean, the High Point's not in the top 20 right now.
Right.
So, I mean, Jacksonville's 7.
They played some people.
That's a valid argument.
Right.
You're a top 10 team and you're the top scorer in the country. There's only so much you can do about the guys around you, and some of these guys are,
unfortunately, it's part of the deal.
That's part of we're talking about this award and how it's awarded each year.
Right.
What are the criterion for the award? And I think Asher Nolting, he's going to be a great pro at the next level.
For sure.
He's going to be an impact guy. Probably one of the top 5 players in the country.
He's going to be an
All-American. When it comes to scoring, he's an All-American. But for this specific award, this is what has to happen. You know what I mean? You're trying to fill those criteria, but you look at it on a deeper scale. If you're just looking at, as a broad spectrum, Asher Nolting's right up there with anybody, you could say.
For sure.
And it just happens that this is the Tewaaraton Award, and this is what they value. And so we have to adjust how we evaluate things accordingly. And I feel like I'm taking a shot in the dark, too, with a goalie here at McElroy. I could say the same thing, but he's one of the best goalies, but traditionally that's not awarded by this committee, and who decides on this. So, I really hope that is a part of things as well, and that they can see that in a goalie or defenseman or whatever moving forward here too.
This will transition us to talking about the Ivy League here, but the other guy that I was thinking about who at this point of the year has to be in consideration is Matt Brandow, who's up there amongst the nation's leaders in points once again. Now, Yale just lost to Brown, and they've had a couple of head-scratching performances this year, but is a team that I think many still expect to be in the conversation for the NCAAs and then moving forward throughout this year. And if they are ready to make a run, and they do make a run here in the Ivy League and whatever, he's the guy.
I mean, he's the only Ivy League player we're talking about, and the Ivy League is regarded as the best league in the country. So he's second in the nation in points per game right now.
Yep.
And if Yale goes and makes it to the championship game,
or actually third.
Third, excuse me.
Yeah.
Nolting's
now one, and Nick Turns 2.
And if Yale goes and makes the championship game, Brandow probably should be the front runner.
Yeah.
If you're playing in the best league in the country on a conference basis, and you get yourselves in the conference tournament, and you do whatever there, and you go to the championship, Brandow, you go to championship weekend, you make it a championship game, you should be the front runner. Absolutely. If Yale can make that run, which we think he can.
So let's talk about
that right now, shall
we? That's what we want to talk about.
Let's do so.
We broke down the Ivy League a little bit on Thursday, talking about what the conference tournament could look like, and things even got more fascinating this weekend with some of the results.
Yeah.
So it's a wild mess. We could have 4 teams, and realistically, we could have 4 teams finish at 3-3. between 3 and 6 in the standings, and then you got tiebreakers to try to figure things out. We don't want to start with that yet. We're going to see how things play out once again this week. But the question is, we've got, I mean, you look at it, there are 6 legitimate teams that feel like they're really, really good. Like, let's just broad. But how many of them legitimately do you think can make the Final Four?
I'm going to say 4 of those teams. I'm going to go with Princeton, Cornell, Yale, and Penn.
Okay.
And there's some that I am more faithful in than others. And I guess I'll start with, I wanted to talk about Yale here because they're coming off of what is a interesting loss, to Brown. And I was really wondering, I was going through some of their games in which they won and they lost. They have the losses at Cornell, at Brown, at Penn State. Talked about them being a young club all year long. They have their wins against Princeton and Penn. And I was wondering, well, is Yale the kind of team that when they get hot, watch out? You know what I mean? That's when they win games. That's
what we saw in the 1 week.
They're a team that lives and dies by the 3, if you will. You know what I mean? They're a team that does that. They're not that team. From what I've understood about some of their biggest wins of the year. Their win over Princeton, 14-12 was the victory there. They scored 14 goals on 54 shots. Nothing that's otherworldly shooting-wise. No. They caused 13 Princeton turnovers that day. Jared Paquette, their goalie, had 19 saves that day. Their win over Penn, 12-11 in OT. They caused 11 Penn turnovers. Penn turned the ball over 21 times that day. Paquette had 12 saves that day. So Yale, yes, they can get hot shooting, and I think that's a reason why they can make a run because they can go off for a game. But what's going to be their backbone in games that they're successful in is that defense and their ability to turn the ball over and get more shots. Because if they keep shooting, yes, they can get hot, but the more they shoot, the better they are. And I think that at the end of the day, that is what Yale can do in the tournament because it's hard to predict a team is going to get hot every single game. Because I was like, well, if Yale has a cold night, they're going to lose. I don't think if Yale has a cold night, they're automatically done in the NCAA tournament.
They're too talented for that.
I think that they're doing such a good job at turning teams over, and they have a good enough goalie with Paquette, defenseman, and Fake that they can get that job done there, grind something out, and they have a good enough offense where they can be consistent enough over the course of a tournament to get there at the end and make championship weekend. So Yale was a team that I had questions about. So those are some of the answers I think I found today.
Yeah, I think the biggest head-scratching thing about this loss against Brown is that it's their first one since that Cornell loss at the beginning of the Ivy League season. And that was the one where they had that big comeback in the second half after dropping themselves in the big hole. And it felt like that was the time they had turned the corner, and they had been so good since. So this was the first time there was even a question on like, oh, is this the Yale team we think they are?
You know what happened against Brown? They had 3 caused turnovers.
Okay.
So that, like, look at their keys to success. Yes, it can happen to them.
But no, you're right.
You look at what they do on defense, and if that's something I feel like they can be consistent at if they get in the tournament. There's other things they can rely on. This is a conference game. You know, anything can happen there. Brown comes in like a house of fire. Do you think Brown are they one of your teams that you think can make a run legitimately?
So that's the question, because I actually have in my notes here Brown with a question mark next to them.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a legitimate question I have, because their wins back-to-back weeks over Penn and Yale are honestly, I mean, because nobody's beaten Maryland this year, and only Princeton has beaten Georgetown. So, like, those wins in back-to-back weeks are some of the best wins that any one team has in the entire country.
They have the 9th best RPI in the nation, by the way, Brown.
However,
which surprised me. I didn't believe that at first.
However, these back-to-back wins are after they had lost 3 straight games, including losing to a UMass team that now we aren't sure what to make of in CAA play.
And lost to Fairfield.
Right. That was and that game was 3 weeks ago. So that, to me, is where the confliction fly. I'm kind of conflicted because I'm not sure which team is this team, do they just get up for the right games, or can they consistently be that good? And I guess we'll find that out here down the stretch, because they still they still have work to do.
They go to Cornell and then host Dartmouth.
Yeah, so they finished 2-2. This game against Cornell is huge, because if they beat Cornell and then they follow it up and do what we would expect them to do and beat Dartmouth, because it feels like Dartmouth is while they're not a bad team,
No,
they just haven't been able to
They're
quite.
on the wrong. This is a rough year for Dartmouth,
year.
who has a good group, yet the Ivy League is so good that they just find themselves in the wrong end of things.
Well, and you know what? Dartmouth is going to play spoiler against somebody because they played Cornell. Was it Cornell they played this past weekend?
The Cornell beat them by 8-7 recently. Yes. Cornell,
and it
was the Army lost this last weekend.
Yeah, and so, that's right. So, I mean, Dartmouth has played everybody tough.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it's Penn or Brown, they're probably going to spoil somebody's season. I'm just predicting that now. But I don't know. I really don't know what to make of Brown because
Okay.
I watched a lot of their game against UMass, and what UMass did against them made it look kind of easy at times for UMass offensively. And like UMass, I was buying into UMass after what I saw in that
Right.
game. And now I don't know what to make of UMass, and I still don't know what to make of Brown, despite these two big wins.
I am in on Penn. I'm in on Princeton. I think both those teams
I'm
can make a
100%
run.
in on Princeton.
Penn has played an insanely good schedule. It'd be hard-pressed to find a team that's played a tougher schedule and played it better. I know they haven't won every single game, Penn, but they're 5-4. All 9 of their games decided by 4 goals or less. I mean, they had their first game of the season, a 2-goal loss to Georgetown. Those two teams played today. I don't know who's winning, personally. 1-goal wins against Duke, Penn State, Villanova. They have the 1-goal loss against Princeton, a game in which they scored 20 goals. Princeton has the best defense in the Ivy League. Penn scored 20 goals on them. So that, to me, tells me that they can do it against any team at any time. They scored 15 goals against Cornell, who we have, I think, a lot of respect. We had a lot of respect defensively for prior to this. They have that weird loss to Brown, 12-10, because Brown's on a streak, and an 11-8 win this past weekend over Harvard. So Penn plays only close games, and you kind of worry that maybe they'll lose one of those because they ever so often lose a 1-goal game here. But they have the makeup to me to be able to make a run. I don't have many questions about that because, you look at the record, 5-4, 2-3 in the Ivy League. They have one more Ivy League game against Dartmouth. They
have to
go
win it.
to Dartmouth. You can't have 4 losses because you got to have 3 losses to be able to get in, or 3 wins, I guess, if you're looking at the other end. So to me, I don't have many questions about Penn. I know they have to win this weekend. I think they will because they're desperate. They beat Harvard 11-8, almost convincingly, it feels like, for them. A 3-goal game is a convincing win for Penn. It feels like they know what they have to do to get in. I think they're talented enough to do it.
Yeah, they've got another elimination game this week.
Yeah.
Kind of. Or at least for the Ivy League tournament against Dartmouth. Remember, it was Princeton that Dartmouth played tough. 12-10 your final past weekend. Game that was tied at halftime. So keep an eye on that Penn-Dartmouth game as a sneaky, very, very interesting one in the Ivy League this weekend. The team that I want to just quickly hit on Princeton because of all the talent they have. I mean, their resume, first off, is absurd. They've got wins over Georgetown, Rutgers, and Penn, which I think may be the most impressive resume in the entire country. And I think you can talk about this team as a legitimate Final Four contender because of the high-end talent they have everywhere. I mean, at the offensive end, we talk about Slusher and Brown. Both of them have been stellar attack-wise. Tyler Sandoval at the face-off X has been solid. He's over 50%. I think he can battle just about anybody in the country and keep it close, though he struggled this past weekend against Dartmouth. Eric Peters in goal has been fantastic. He's 7th in the country in save percentage. And then we know what they have defensively with George Bond at close, despite the fact that they were winning some of these big games even without their best defender, who's an All-American. And Andrew Song is an All-American type LSM as well. So their high-end talent is with everybody else with all the best other teams in the country, and they have the results to prove it.
They do. I agree. And I think that's not a question for me. One team we haven't talked about, I know we're kind of going through the Ivy League here, but who cares? Cornell. They have not looked good as of late. Cornell, with the overtime win against Syracuse. I know it's a rivalry game and what have you.
Came from behind.
They come from behind. Didn't look good early, and you can't get into that kind of hole against a good team in the NCAA tournament.
No.
And I love their attack line. I think Gavin Adler's great, but their goal situation concerns me. I mean, in that game against Army this last weekend, Chase Erlin was pulled after 17 minutes. He only made 6 saves, and he allowed 7 goals. And his hook has been quick. He was also pulled in the Syracuse game as well. And if you're kind of going through some of that, this point of the year, That's a little concerning to me if you're Cornell. So, yeah, we talk about a lot of these teams. I mean, they're lower on the rungs for me in terms of the teams I have faith in to be able to make a consistent run in the NCAA tournament at this point.
Yeah, from what we've seen the last couple of weeks, I don't know if I have that confidence in Cornell. Not to say they're not probably a tournament team, but I don't know if even if they're in the tournament, I don't know if I would pick them to win 2 rounds and get to championship weekend.
No, I just think that there's too many questions for them still, and we're in the midst of April. Other teams have questions, I realize that, but it feels like they're still trying to answer them, and they've had difficulties with teams that they probably shouldn't. I mean,
I would put Cornell in the Brown conversation right now.
On equal footing?
Similar, where I have a lot of questions, where they've shown the ability to beat great teams. Like, I mean, Ohio State has been up and down, but I still think Ohio State's a pretty good win for Cornell. Like, to me, that shows, like, hey, they can go and beat one of the best teams in one of the other conferences, just like we've seen Brown beat Penn and Yale in back-to-back weeks. But they also have the losses where you go, huh? Not sure what to make of that.
The problem with Cornell could be is they might not make the Ivy League tournament.
Right.
They finish up with Brown and Princeton. So they are 3-1. They're one of those teams that could finish 3-3. And so all of a sudden your resume isn't looking as hot as some of these other teams that as of late have played really well. You're not playing well. You finish the season slow. They could be on the outside looking in, and, you don't know. It could be 4, it could be 5 at this point. We're not sure how many Ivy League teams are going to get in. It feels like it's going to be 5, but I think that they have some work to do, and they have to win one of these 2 at the end of the road here if they really want to feel comfortable about getting in the NCAA tournament, mind you. So I know we shouldn't get into we talked about the Ivy League scenarios last week. They're only crazier. They'll only get even weirder this weekend. I'm sure something's going to happen that we have no idea what.
Hope we have just everybody at like 3-2, 2-3,
2-4.
2-4.
Dartmouth can win the last couple games of their year and make a couple teams 2-4 fighing for that last spot. I don't know if that's a scenario, but I feel like that'd be fun.
We did have one of those 7. I think it was a 7-way tie in Major League Lacrosse.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
2018?
No, it was
17?
before that. I think it was 16 or 17.
Yeah, I think it was.
And it was wild.
Good times.
And we may be testing the tiebreaker scenarios in the Ivy League.
Yes.
Brown just wants to take care of business,
which they have been doing.
They have been. And so we had a chance to talk to one of their star attackmen after a big win, second straight big win over Yale. So we have Ryan Aughavin from Brown joining us now. And Ryan, we were talking about it before we got on here. A really impressive run for you guys, especially the last couple of weeks. Going off the 3-game losing streak that you had kind of entering Ivy League play into these last 2 games, what was the attitude coming off those tough losses to where you've turned things around here and gotten a couple of big wins the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, definitely turned it around for sure, but just a testament to coach and really the senior class have done a great job, whether it's a win or loss, just keeping that same mentality of we got to get better and we got to improve, whether we're learning from a win or learning from a loss. It's been just getting 1% better every day of practice and seeing where that gets us.
What were some of the things that you guys took away from those losses in that stretch?
Definitely just realizing the potential we have, and if we truly put together a 60-minute game, which I think we've done the last couple of weeks, really where that can get us, and just playing to our full potential as a full team, all 53 guys.
The Ivy League this year obviously has gotten a ton of recognition, and it's deserved from what you guys have done out of conference and now the battles we're seeing in it. How best can you describe what the Ivy League has been like this year in these games against each other?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's, like you said, there's great teams all across the country. All 7 teams playing are great. Everyone's definitely a little extra inspired because we watched for the last season, so everyone's got a little extra juice in them, and it's good to see everyone back and everyone having a good year.
Is there anything different from like when you guys last played Ivy League play in 2019, or does it just feel the same with maybe a little added juice?
It's definitely a little different as someone who experienced it before. I mean, it's like you said, 2019, so it's been a long time. Definitely, like some of these teams we haven't played in 3 years, so it just feels good to have it back, and we're definitely just grateful for the opportunities we're getting, and we're just trying to make the most of everything we're getting.
For you, when you had an opportunity to go to school, I mean, you have different options, and obviously Brown, an Ivy League institution, is appealing. But what was it especially about Brown that made that the right spot for you?
Yeah, just Coach Daly just really felt like when I met him, it really just felt like a perfect fit. He just the way he runs a program and so upfront and so honest, and coaches, Coach Holm, Coach Feck, and the new guys we brought on, everything it just was a perfect fit and just a perfect home for sure.
And I know his offense is probably a fun one to play in. Like, where does it rank in terms of the type of offenses you've played in throughout your career?
Yeah, no, it's definitely fun. We always have the green light, and I mean the team we got right now, we got 10, 20 guys that we're confident we could throw in and we can score goals. So it's definitely fun. We trust any guy we put in, so that's definitely the best part.
Compare your feeling at this point of the year toward the end of April this year compared to what it was like last year when you guys played like a game and you didn't have a season and you had to watch everybody else compete for a chance to go to a national championship.
Yeah, definitely. It was frustrating because we were one of the few Ivies that were still playing and trying to get 5 games to get tournament eligible. Unfortunately, we came up short of that, but I mean, definitely we thought we grew a lot as a team over the spring, and we thought we put together a good foundation that has helped us this year. I mean, we lost. It was tough to see like 12 or 13 guys have to go through that, and those were the guys that were in my original class. So it was tough to watch that and definitely fuel the fire for the next 40 guys, and it was definitely huge for the foundation of this team for sure.
I think you guys, in terms of being in the national landscape, kind of stormed onto the scene in the early part of the season. But like, I'm assuming probably you felt this way, that you guys had some promise last year when you were playing a handful of games. Like, when did you know that this team could do what you're doing now here at the end of the year and competing to be in the Ivy League tournament and be in the NCAAs again?
Yeah, definitely. I think from the moment we stepped on campus last year, same feeling this year. We had guys like Phil Goss and Luke McCaleb who were just unreal players, great leaders, and they set the tone. And guys now are following their footsteps and just trying to be like them. And the guys before us really just set the path, and they made it easy on us. And we're just following suit.
So you're a Long Island guy, and Long Island's got some pretty good Italian food, but as somebody whose wife worked in Providence for a while and spent a lot of time there, Federal Hill's got some good stuff. Where do you lie? If Federal Hill, Long Island, where are you going for Italian?
Like you said, Federal Hill has got some great food, but I'm sticking with my mom. My mom's home cooking. She's got the best stuff, so I'll stick with her.
You are a smart man right there. Mom always has the best home cooking, especially when it's good Italian food. Hey, Ryan, keep up the good work here. You got a couple more games here down the stretch, and we hope to see you playing into May. You guys are playing some terrific lacrosse. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
So great to catch up with Ryan. An impressive win and more big games here down the stretch for Brown. What do we say they finish up with? Cornell and Dartmouth. Mm-hmm. Can they win 2?
Go 2-0 and secure their spot.
Yeah, they go 2-0. You get to 4 wins, you're in the Ivy League
I think
tournament.
you're in good shape. Okay, let's wrap things up. Travis ran a marathon yesterday.
I did.
The highlight of the route, what would you say was the best part?
Turning onto Boylston Street is like still giving me chills right now thinking about it. And the crowds, the entire route for the Boston Marathon, and anybody who runs it probably has felt this. Like, I did not have headphones in. My wife and I ran together, and honestly, the playlist from people on the side of the course was better than any playlist I could have ever put together on my own.
Okay.
So thank you to all the fans out there. Like, every time you would go through another town on your way all the way to Boston, there were like 6 and 7 people deep on the side of the course. It's unlike anything I have ever seen in my life. It was one of the coolest days of my life.
That's awesome. I will say, and it's interesting, you look at, I ran in New York, and the cool, like, there was music, but also the amount of flags I saw from different countries running through New York was really cool. I thought that was a really neat aspect. Okay. What was the toughest moment of your run? What moment? What mile?
I mean,
where were you hurting? Like, when did it start?
They call it's right around mile. It's between like 19, 20, 21. They call it Heartbreak Hill for a reason, because it's the third of 3 gigantic hills. I live in Newton, right along the course, and that is the hardest stretch of the marathon by far. Knew it going in. Have run this for years now. This stretch of road, and it was just as hard as advertised. When you're at that point 17 to 20 miles in. Was
it nausea? Was it soreness? Was the body just
honestly, quite frankly, I felt pretty good.
Insight. Yeah,
I felt pretty good throughout. My wife had a cramp she felt like it was coming on, so she was popping some salt pills, and we powered through it. But when you get to the top of that hill, and you're right around Boston College, I don't know if any of the BC women's players were out there, but I got a lot of cheers around the BC area. The kids were great there, the students, and that just propels you. And then at that point, it's all pretty much downhill into the city. So once you get to mile 21 of Boston, the last 5, it's just you know you're going to finish. It's just how fast am I going to do this? Do I have enough in the tank to really push it, or am I just cruising? And we cruised our way in, and then turned on the jets down Boylston Street.
First thing you ate when it was over?
I had a nice cold beer and some chicken tenders at the Lennox Hotel.
Did you dip it in anything? Any sauces?
Some ketchup.
Just ketchup, no barbecue.
Honestly,
mustard.
best chicken tenders I think I've ever had. They tasted good.
Yeah, I was a little nauseous. It took me a while to sort of I ended up having a burger from Shake Shack.
Yeah. That sometimes gets you.
Yeah, it got me. Yeah, I didn't throw up or anything. I was just it was a little touch and go for a little while. They're just trying to recap and reform my senses.
Well, it's funny. It's so interesting. Between training runs and different half marathons I've run, the gut thing is so interesting. Some days you feel great after a run, and you're I'm just starving, and then other days you're nah, I need to settle things down for a little while. Just goes back and forth. Depends on the day. I was okay.
Will you do it again?
I don't know. I'm pretty sore today. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
This is as sore as I've been at any point. But I don't know. I think so. I think we'll try it again.
Okay. One more question. I know you have to bear with us here. When will you run again? Just in general. When's the next jog you make?
Maybe later this week.
Okay.
Just nice and easy.
All right.
Loosen things up a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I had.
Once my
Travis.
feet stop hurting.
Feet? Really?
Bottom of my feet are
bottom of your feet
are
Sounds like you needed some new shoes or something.
No, I had some great shoes.
Oh,
got some of the Nike Vapor Flies.
Okay.
Was flying.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure you did wonderful. Yeah, you did great. You both broke 4 hours.
Yeah.
Incredible time.
It's cool.
Your feet hurt apparently, but you're still here, so we appreciate you fighting through.
Tough it through. Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
Congratulations again. I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. You guys were awesome.
Really cool.
And you raised a ton of money, and it was I'm sure it was an awesome journey, especially to go through with your wife and to see her cross the finish line. To me, that probably was the highlight of the whole thing, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it was really special. Yeah. It was emotional. It was a really cool finish, and something we're gonna keep with us for forever. It was awesome.
Yeah, check out his social media stuff, a lot on that and everything like that. Really cool to go and see that journey, really inspirational and everything like that. And so Travis will continue to recover. And
be back here on Thursday.
We will be back here on Thursday. We got midweek moments. We'll get you ready for another huge weekend. Getting down the stretch here, regular season, Travis.
Couple weeks left to go.
Couple weeks left to go.
We'll see you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.